Welcome to Tea Time with Shayleigh and Amber. I'm Shayleigh Evans, and I'm a life coach for pets and their people. I'm a truth seeker, and it's my passion to empower others and to give animals a voice along the way.
I'm Amber Leidick, and I've been a performance horse trainer focused on behavioral issues for over 20 years. My current passion is creating impactful in-person and online events and collaborating with professionals to be on the leading edge of positive change in the horse industry.
We are two friends invested in theta healing, belief system work, animal communication, and any resources that benefit human-animal partnerships. So turn up the volume and let's dive into the Great Awakening, brought to you by our horses. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Last week, if you missed the episode, we released part 2, talking with Celeste. It was a super good conversation, so check that out if it feels good to you. This week is a full moon. I don't know why I'm leading with that. I don't really have any context or anything else to say about it. So do with that what you will. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, wait, tomorrow's the full moon and this episode won't be aired yet. So that was dumb. But anyway, hopefully you guys, by the time you listen to this, you enjoyed the full moon. So I feel like sometimes we talk about our personal lives on the podcast, and I do feel like I have to lead with this cool thing that's been happening to me. So I decided publicly that I was going to create a special type of reading for collective energy. So I've been really, really called lately, just with the Great Awakening and everything, to connect to collective energy specific to people, and then also specific to just like certain breeds of animals and stuff, or certain types of animals. And so I declared that. I made the spot. I started booking appointments for that. And then I was realizing that I was so excited about these readings and that I've kind of been denying my expansion, which we kind of know. Amber's been telling me that all along. That's why I don't really identify with animal communicator anymore. And I've kind of expanded my little title. But it's been so cool because ever since I have decided to do that, I've started having very lucid dreams about sacred geometry and soul contracts. And it's like, I was telling Amber before we started recording this podcast that I've actually been like meditating and seeing these geometrical shapes in front of me. And I have like these knowings that they're a contract. And what's really cool is my horse Kip, who is the one who taught me animal communication. He kind of guided my entire business. He's been like a really strong spiritual teacher for me for the last like 10 years. He has been showing me this one specific one, and he's like, this is the contract between you and I'm going to teach you how to read it so that you can start reading them for other people and their animals. So that's cool. That's what's going on in my life. I was telling Amber, I had this dream where I was trying to draw it out and recreate like what I was seeing, and I couldn't do it. And I was so pissed. I was like, it looks like this, but not like this. So evidently I won't be drawing for you people, but I will be hopefully interpreting these. It almost looks like an astrological chart. It's like really cool and complicated. And yeah, that's where I'm at on my journey.
uh, well, where am I at on my journey? I will say that I did have a mild identity crisis coupled with burnout and then recovery. And I'm fine now. I'm good now. Um, I was struggling with this new space of wanting to expand and co-create with people because I feel like it almost feels like in the very beginning it was hard to co-create with people because it felt like I struggled with, am I doing this because, well, I guess it's kind of the same flavor actually. Am I doing this with people because I'm not enough on my own? And then that mutated into, no, of course not, because it's expansive, it's fun, you can't know everything. Got okay with that. And then as we started to, plan EOC and some of these other collaborations, me and you have like a space where we don't have any offerings, I think, for like the next 2 months until we start, or 2 or 3 months or whatever. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just do a couple things on my own, like what I used to do. I'll do a clinic and I'll do some one-on-one sessions. I'll open my books. Nothing felt good. I was like, ugh. Every time I thought about planning anything like that, I was like, oh God, like I don't really want to do that. So that got me into this like spiral of, okay, well, what do I want to do? And as we were talking about EOC, stuff was coming up for me like, I want to do stuff with the horses and people. Like, but it wasn't coming from, oh, an aligned place. Like, ooh, actually, I feel like this calling to do this thing. It was coming from like an ego place of, well, I want people to know that I'm also a good horse trainer, and I want people to know that I can do things like that too. And I had to sort of like sit with it and identify like, where is this coming from? Like, what's the point? Like, why do I need so badly for people to know, quote unquote, that I'm a good horse trainer? When I took me a long time to separate from that title. And it was really actually me holding on and almost going into a place of scarcity of like, oh, I know I can always go back to that. I can always do that just in case all of these bigger things that I'm planning don't work out. I know that I can always go back to horse trainer. And it was so strange because I was like, I looking into also during my career, I wanted to go show, and it was the same theme because I want to show people that I'm more than just a problem horse trainer. I can actually also do really technical stuff. Like I'm very talented. So it's all the same. It was the same theme. So I had a session with Rochelle, of course, and we just identified some things as to why I was death gripping to that, and it was good to be able to identify with a title. Like right now, and this is where my identity crisis came in. I don't have a title. People say, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Fuck, dude, I can do all kinds of things. Like, what do you need me to do right now? I can adapt and I can probably help you with it, which is great, but also not great for marketing and for, when people don't know you and you're like, "Oh, I do everything." It's like, well, that's ridiculous. So I was having that moment, and what she actually came up with is she's like, well, what you're doing right now is too expansive for a title. And I was like, no, that doesn't work for me. That's not going to work. But it was actually when I started to think about it, me being really deeply called to create bigger events and bringing in lots of different presenters and expanding and supporting their careers and touching their people with the other people's people and seeing what it does within the industry, being able to connect all of these people and have other professionals come in and spread because it's so much faster and it's so much bigger and so much more impactful than me just being a good horse trainer, which is very self-centered and internal and self-serving versus I have the ability to put together these things and there's other people that are not called to do that. They're like, that's crazy. How do you even? And it feels really easy for me. So while I don't want to call myself an event planner because that does not sound sexy, it, that's where I got okay with releasing horse trainer, releasing my identity as good at something, and I'm allowing myself to move into a space where I'm at the beginning stages of a new thing and I don't know all the answers and I don't know if I'm good at it yet or not. And so it's this weird shift that had to happen, but I feel really comfortable in it now. I still don't have a title. That's okay though. We don't need a title. We don't need a title. But yeah, so it was wild. And I went to of course, I ended up going to a freaking business conference Thursday and Friday. And what is the first thing everyone asks you? Oh, what do you do? I'm like,
Yeah, what do you do?
I just told people I was in an identity crisis and I'm working through a transition. And it was funny because people would want to say, oh, so you're just pivoting. I was like, no, it's an identity crisis. I'm okay with that. Why aren't you okay with that? It made people really uncomfortable. People are in the mindset world and they're trying to like, support you. And I was like, I'm okay with it being an identity crisis, man. Just let me have it. The burnout thing was just me going and pushing too hard to, even in this situation, pushing too hard to like force to figure it out. And
Mhm.
so what I sort of asked myself was, okay, like I need to go back to like, why am I doing anything that I'm doing? And so I just literally last week, like rode my horses and hung out with my horses and didn't go on social media and just stopped because I was like, I'm going to snap if I can continue. So I feel much better now. Much, much better.
Well, I think like being an entrepreneur, being self-employed, there's just like that level of vulnerability where it's funny because I used to be like that too. I'd be like, oh, if I ever get really tired or really burnt out of this, I'll just wait tables or something. Like I always like had something in the back of my mind of like, okay, if this fails, I'll do this. But for one, it's kind of ingrained in us from like a young age where it's like, you grow up, you go to school, you be able to support yourself, you always have a backup plan. At least for me, like my mom was like very much you don't want to rely on anyone. You want to be able to support yourself, all this stuff. And especially like single moms, like they just have to be able to think my mom wasn't a single mom, but she worked like one for some reason. I don't know. She's always hustled her whole life. And she's kind of like instilled that hustle in me a little bit. But I think too, like when you're self employed, there's that level of like, you do kind of have to get past the scarcity because you're like, well, I'm the show. And if the show goes up in flames, like that's it. That's like, that's the end. And also, there's kind of like ease that comes with because if you think about someone working for someone else, people will be like, oh, I quit my job and I'm starting another one. And no one ever asks why. Like people are just like, oh, at least in my circle, people are like, oh, yeah, she quit her job. She's moving on to something else. When you're like in the line of work that we do and we're like pivoting, people are like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like I'll get DMs and people are like, are you detoxing? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And I'm like, I just need a little change. Like but it's interesting when you create this identity around something and then you start to pivot. Although, what's really cool and feels very aligned right now is I announced that I was going to start doing like the soul contract sessions and the collective sessions. And so many of our people, like from Tea House and just like my regular clients, texted me and were like, I am so happy you're doing this. I'm booking a session right now. Like, we've been waiting for you to kind of realize this piece. And I feel like that part is going to kind of come into place once you release all the resistance around everything else. And part of your resistance probably came from we were disidentifying from like when we first met, both of us were like kind of like ceasing to ride our horses a little bit. We were kind of like pulling ourselves away from like the identity with our horses. And we had to learn so much about who we are outside of our horses that now we're just barely starting to like reintegrate them back into our lives. And I think we had to go through all those lessons because we do want to host events and retreats and stuff like that where people don't have to bring their horses and we can kind of help them like reimagine, reawaken who they are outside of their horses so that they can be more whole and complete. Because I think a lot of us, speaking to the ego piece, a lot of us wrap our identities up into our horses. And when something is, quote, not going right with our horses, it's like a really major hit to like ourselves, the way we feel. Are like, for me, I used to be like, oh my God, my self-worth is like wrapped up into my horses and the way that I care about them, like even just like on a day-to-day basis, like I wanted to be sure that I cared for them in the best way possible, blah blah blah. And that was all such ego-based stuff, and that was all around entitlement, whether I like to say that or not. Like that word is strong, but it's true because as soon as we start to think we know what's best for someone else, you're in that entitled state right away, whether you're well-meaning or not. And I think we had to learn a lot of lessons from that because now we've been in the Great Awakening. We are, am I gonna spill our new event right now? We are creating it. We are creating an event right now. We haven't quite came up with a title, shocking. But it is going to be a little like 3-day releasing, honoring, embodying, herd-led reconnection to soul, body, mind, spirit, all the things. It's gonna be at Amber's farm, and it's gonna be magical. It's gonna be like ocean, forest, vineyard, all these different things. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But I really do think that everything that we have gone through in the past couple of years, and also especially recently, has guided us into being able to bring the essence and the spirit of horses into our offerings without actually having to always physically be with them. And then we're also teaching other people that they can do the same, like call in the spirit, call in the and I see my social media all the time now where people are constantly talking about animal communication, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's so fun," because before it used to be like I felt almost like we were introducing the idea, and now everybody's like not as scared of the concept or it's not as foreign. I don't know, but now it's kind of easier for us to interweave. So, yeah,
Hmm.
everything comes in time.
Yeah, and I feel like to speak to what you were talking about before, it's like that's the whole reason we started the podcast because it was those conversations of your identity. And then once the horses are like, well, we couldn't just tell you how we felt, and you could definitely create your own idea of what the relationship looked like and what the dynamic was and how they felt because they can't just go, hey, lady, that's not actually how I feel until they do with their behavior and especially with people doing sessions with you and having the horse then tell them a lot of that shit really does poke at your reality and I
Mm-hmm.
think it kind of sometimes it throws people off, and that was this piece of it was the same thing when people would bring me their horses and I'd stick them in the round pen together. It was like a therapy session. It was like, oh, well, this and this and like, oh no, that's not what's going on. And so they are like the best teachers, mostly because if you don't get the nudges, they're going to give you a boulder. And since they're, 1,000-pound animal, give or take, um, it really makes you step back and look at like what's actually not working right now because no one wants to die or be injured. And so it's it's just so good. And yeah, and also thinking about now I can feel like I can bring them back into my life. I can ride and I can do it in a way where I feel really conscious, even leading them around. And that's stuff I've taught for a long time, but it really does feel like it's at a different level. And when I feel like when they look at me now, they're like, oh, thank God, like now she's ready. But people will look and go, well, this is what you guys teach. And, it's like there's just different layers and these different cycles that you have to go through. And they know when you're ready. And so, me even being able to release guilt around when I'm not riding my horses all the time. I'm looking out at them in the pasture and I'm looking out at them being like perfectly happy that I'm not riding them right now. But now they are also perfectly happy going with me, and me going out there, they walk up to me, throw the halter on, whereas before Smarty would play this like game with me, not to say he doesn't always yet, but it was like, nope, not today, not today.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like I go out there and he's like, oh, hey. I was like, oh, it's like, finally. I'm like, okay, sorry, I'm slow. Um, so yeah, I feel like being able to create this entire herd led experience is going to be so rad, mostly because I feel like my place in the horse world is that realm and the herd that I have in particular. It's like that's why they're here. It's like their favorite thing to do. So to be able to have them be able to like directly come in and teach and like work with people and it's the funnest thing to watch them, you know, go straight to people's different parts of their body and like, hey, what's this?
Mm-hmm.
And then to have you there, to interweave these connections and the communication between them and the people and have like those messages in real time. Like, are you kidding? That's so ridiculous. It's gonna be so freaking fun.
It
But
is going to be fun.
what I will do is I'll make a form. And in this podcast, there'll be a form for you guys if you want to get on the list to get the more information about it. We'll make sure it's in these notes so that you will be able to get into that. If it's not the actual sign up, it'll be at least information by then because I have a whole week. So,
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, it's so funny how we make little shifts. And recently, I have been really, really strong in my affirmations, and I've been really conscious about the music I listen to, I keep joking around, and this is such a dick thing to say, but also I'm kind of not lying because I keep saying I'm one with the Lord right now. And it's just like me trying to be like the human I want to be, but I'm not just being sarcastic because I did like hold Jesus's hand last weekend. And not to really put myself out there on the podcast, but I was like deep in this meditation. And I literally, and I texted Amber about it, and she's like, oh, you should talk to so and so. Jesus is like her bro. And I was like, he was so cool. His light was so bright that I almost couldn't look at it. I was in this meditation, I was doing a cord cutting, and it was the coolest thing because it's something basically what he was helping with me with is like my fear of the unknown. And now that I think about it, like right in this moment, I haven't had any fear of the unknown since then, which is kind of interesting. But so I got deep into this meditation, and when I get into a meditative state, it's like I don't really know where I am or what I'm doing. So I can't really recall. It's like I'm like hypnotized or something. It's kind of interesting. So I don't recall exactly like what happened. But what I do remember is that I was like allowing the fear of the unknown to leave my body. And then this like super bright light came out above me. And then there was like these like piercingly green eyes and like this like golden energy. And he just like stuck out his, I was literally like, oh my God, it's Jesus. Like it just felt like him. I was like, it could have been like an archangel or something, but I don't know. It felt big. And I just reached out my hand, and I don't know how else to explain it, but I just felt this pure love frequency. It was like pure love, pure bliss. I was no longer in my body, but I was like, I could feel my body buzzing. And I was just like, nothing in the world can go wrong right now. It was so strong. And then he held like this almost like book of my life over my head and was like, all right, he literally told me it's kind of like what we learn in theta, which is so weird. He was like, I need you to imagine yourself in the future without a fear of the unknown. What would you do? What are the things that you would do? And I was like, okay. So I was like imagining like riding. And for some reason, I was water skiing because I hate like being in the water. I just don't like putting my body in any sort of position to where it could be embarrassed or compromised in any way. It's a wonder that I like walked on my driveway. Which is so lame. That's a little bit dramatic, but hopefully you guys know what I'm saying. So I'm like going forward, like thinking about all the things. And he's holding his book over my head and he's just like putting white light in all the pages. And then all of a sudden, like all these memories just start floating in my mind. Like memories of this kid that I remember climbing a rock stack at the lake and a rock crushed him and killed him in front of me. And just like all these things that I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about all these. And just white light, all of this fear like being released. And then there was a bookmark to where I am now,
Mhm.
and white light went into that. And then he just proceeded to go through the pages. And it was like all these blank pages of white light. Then he closed that book, opened another one, closed that book, opened another one. And it went on for I don't know how long, but eventually he was just like, do you understand that like your lives are never going to end? So like you can't stay here and watch us forever. You would never leave, but just know that like forever until eternity, you are going to be healed from this particular energy. And then he just kind of put me back in my body and my eyes popped open. And I was at my sister-in-law's house and I just like turned and looked at her and she was like, what happened to you? Like, cause she wasn't in the meditation. She was like journaling. And I was like, dude, I literally just met Jesus and he like healed my stories.
Oh, Jace, old JC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my
So
friend
that was really
Jen.
cool.
Jen Jordan. She's the one that's always connecting with Jesus in her
I
meditations and
freaking
stuff.
love it.
She's like, yeah, he's like the coolest dude. He's just like super chill, like like so bright, so much love, and just like the coolest guy. She's just always saying that. It's so funny. I
I love that.
know.
Well, that's what's going on with us. Thanks for thanks for listening. That was a hodgepodge of different things, but it feels like forever since we talked to you guys because we have like some guest podcasts piled up and it just felt right to release some of them. So glad to be back on the pod with you guys. And yeah, if you're interested about our event, check it out in the notes because that's going to be super fun.
The dates, if you want to save them, are going to be July 25th through the 28th. And it's unlike anything you will ever experience. We are bringing in all kinds of things. The ocean will be involved, the forest will be involved. There will be good food, there will be movement, there will be horses, there will be magical things happening. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll put the form in the show notes and you guys can it'll either be a wait list for the information or it will already be the information. I feel like it might already be the information because I feel like the full moon
We
and
get
the
shit done.
retrograde gets me pumped, gets me into my do mode. So now that I'm not burnt out anymore, I can handle it. So yeah, rad. Hope to see you guys there.
See you guys.
Bye.